Good day to you. This is Anagalactic on a Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. Over here, you'll see the outline that we have been attempting to go through, at least in one video so far. I will be able to wrap that up today. This has to do with religion. No matter what I might claim, is not really physics. They're two rather separate topics. One of them has to do with the universe, as we now like to very pompously refer to our environment. The universe. Oh, of course. And of course, the Western scientists, the white race, it knows everything about the universe. Primarily that it's expanding. The hallmark of Western science is psychosis. And that's all it is. There is a caveat, though, because of technology. You can't argue with technology. As Iran is finding out, you cannot argue with technology. If you have technology, you own everything. You rule the world. And you get to dictate what men think. That's white supremacy. That's what's happening. That's global politics. It's about the white race basically taking over. Well, gee whiz, there are quite a few white people. Every European country is just stocked like a fish pond with white people. So who is going to be the ruler? Israel. Israel is going to rule the world, and nothing can stop them. That's what's being demonstrated, certainly over the past 4 months, but also since 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. Oh, those naughty, goddamned Asian whites. Asian whites. Europe is now determined to start World War III with Russia. And the United States, although it's gone back and forth, we really don't want to be involved in that because we're busy helping Israel destroy Iran. We need to concentrate on wiping out the Islam people. That's the goal of the United States under the rulership of Israel. But Europe is Nazified now. They're 100% Hitlerian. The entire continent of Europe is determined psychotically to wipe Russia off the map. This is the 4th time in 250 years that Europe has tried to crush Russia. And somehow those naughty Russians have held on against Napoleon, against, I guess it was the Prussian emperor in World War I, and against Hitler, and now they're doing it again. Germany is officially Nazi, except not against the Jews. It's against Russia. And actually, that's what Hitler wanted. He didn't want the fucking Jews. He wanted the Bolshevik Zionists. I've given video presentations on all these facts that you are not allowed to know, and even if you hear it from me, you will never accept it. You can't accept that. You are brainwashed. There is nothing you can do about that, and I can't reach in to help you. Alas for me, though, I'm under a commission of heaven. I know. Turn this off. You're done. A commission of heaven. That doesn't sound like white supremacy. Well, actually, there's an interesting connection. Why is 15% just half of 30% is 15? Because 15 sounds like 50. Well, actually, all languages have little traps like that. Like Allah. Perhaps you've heard the name Allah, one of the holy names of God according to the Arabian people. And it's a beautiful name, Allah. They don't know what it means. They say so. I've read all of their imams over the past 10 centuries. And they're very frank, they're very honest, very scholarly people. And they have no idea what Allah means. It's just a name that came out of the Arabian desert. I checked with our Western scholars. because I know what it means. No, our Western scholars don't know either. I checked. I specifically looked up using, chatbot, which I think is the greatest librarian. Oh, I'm totally in favor of AI because it helps me in my work. Allah is exactly the same as Eloah. Eloah is another Semitic language called Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, Eloah. So where do they get Allah from? Eloah. And Eloah is definitely one of the holy names of God, Eloah. It's related to El, and it's related to Elohim. And you may have heard of the Elohim from von Daniken's book, Chariot of the Gods, because the aliens, with their UFOs, have come to the earth, according to von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. And those are the Elohim. Well, that's in the Bible. The Elohim are a band of angels. And I know this must hurt your fanny. It's because you've been brainwashed. And if you're a Christian, you're even worse off because you're a Trinitarian. And Trinitarians are going to hell. Because you see, the beautiful thing about Allah is that he has no partners. He has no son. That's one of the two definitions of son. However, the entire span of the entire Tanakh, the entire Old Testament, is all about Jesus Christ being the Son of God. So is Islam wrong? They can't be wrong. No, they're not wrong. So what about the Son of God? Isn't Jesus Christ a hideous name? His real name is Yeshua HaMashiach. That's how you say it in Hebrew. If you say it in Arabic, it's even more beautiful and it sounds like singing. And they know all about Yeshua. They don't worship him because you shouldn't worship a man. It's too dangerous. In the case of Yeshua, I would say you're fairly safe in worshiping him in the privacy of your own heart. But you don't want to be worshiping a man in front of the children. You don't want to misguide the children into worshiping a man, because that sets them up for the false Messiah. And Islam predicts that. They know everything that's in the Bible, more or less. They won't read it because it's Jewish. They don't trust the Jews, and nobody should. And the Holy Scripture, so-called, which the Christians call the Holy Bible, unless you're trained in how to read that book, it's simply going to turn you into a monster. And that has been pointed out several times, not just by atheists, not just by agnostic idiots, not just by white people who don't really know anything because they're not allowed to. But what are we talking about when we say Allah? Well, there's a scientific definition of Allah. The existence of Allah is scientifically proved. Now, in the West, I was not trained to say Allah. I've only been saying Allah for a little less than 2 years, ever since I started reading the Quran and finding out about Islam, because the only way you're ever going to find out anything about Islam is if you study it yourself, because nobody in the West or anywhere else will tell you about Islam, because you're not allowed to know that. Do you understand white supremacy? Do you know world politics? I don't know how much you know, except I kind of do statistically. You know nothing about religion or science or politics or any other subject. You're a white man. And if there's such a thing as racism, which I am dangerously close to, it's severe prejudice against the white race. Because those are the Israelis. So that's why I talk about religion, is because unless you know the basics of religion, it won't matter what you know about astronomy. Let me hedge that bet. It won't matter what you know about physics. It won't matter what you know about mathematics, which is the shit at the bottom of the edifice of science, is the fucking mathematics. And if you're a mathematician, you're an N-word. You're a slave to slaves, and you, by definition, will never know anything, and you should be legally silenced so that you're not allowed to talk. If you're a mathematician who's white. So I am brutally in opposition to the policies of the white race as it's expressing itself today through America, Europe, and, of course, the birthplace of the future false messiah, Israel. What are they doing back on the map? Well, before we open that horrific can of worms that'll make your fanny itch and probably make you want to kill me, as you do everyone else who speaks the truth, you're not going to touch me. Go ahead and try. Nature is taking care of me. You won't have to worry about me being around much longer. Oh, I'm half dead already. So we're going to get into this just to close this off because, as I promised in my last video, and this time I mean it because I actually don't have too many more shots at this left, I am going to publish my paper by the end of this year, or die trying. I've tried twice before over the past 2 years. It can't be done. There's no publishing house for an unconnected man. At the very least, I have to be part of a university, or not even Archive will publish. They won't even look at a paper from me. First of all, I won't even be able to send it to them. So nobody's ever going to read my paper. You will. You will, and all the friends that you tell, and all the talk show hosts that you beg to get me on the interview show. That's your job from now on, and if you don't do it, you're going to roast in eternal brimstone hellfire for all eternity and then some. I'm going to be covering that, don't worry. Hell is a very interesting concept. Muhammad talks about burning in hell on every single page of the Quran, which really isn't that long. I don't recommend reading it through all at once, although some Arabian men and Persian men, and there's a few other nationalities that are Islam, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific, they memorize the entire book and can read it through. I'll be honest, I haven't actually checked, because I would actually want to listen to that being done. Obviously with some Islam Arabic speaking scholars with me to let me know what I'm hearing. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard done with a human voice, is the recitation of the Quran by an Arabic speaking believer. It's music. It's nothing less than music, and it's supernal music. And I cried. I cried when I first heard. I just, you can flick through the YouTube channels. Oh, here's a guy who's going to recite the surah, which is a chapter. He's going to recite it in Arabic. Oh, I got to hear that, because it's quite difficult for an English-speaking person to get the full meaning out of the Arabic, which you can't just read it. You have to hear it. It's meant to be recited out loud by a human voice. And that's the only way to get, something that's a little bit hard to describe, I would have to put it. But once you've heard it, you're probably on your way to being converted, because there's nothing like it. So Allah is a major concept. And I would like to just begin as we finish this outline, which deals a lot with the flood and with eschatology, it's called, and teleology, so you'll know what religion is. Not just Christianity, as you've been brainwashed to think that Jesus is God. Oh God, may God forgive us. He never said he was God, although there are places in what amounts to our own hadith, the gospel records and the letters of Paul and a few others. That's our hadith, our tradition. Nobody knows very much about Yeshua. He didn't write anything, neither did Muhammad, but Muhammad had the blessing of a lot of family and members of his tribe, who were the Quraysh, and they wrote down everything, Daddy-O, but not right away. They were too busy listening to him over a period of more than 2 decades as an archangel recited Allah's words to Muhammad, and that's the Quran. It's not none of it is Muhammad's. It's all from an archangel. And that's also true in a lot of the Israeli prophets. They simply, one way or another, got written down what an angel told them. And the very first prophet, Enoch, who's anathema in the West, the Islam people know all about Enoch. They're the ones who taught me that he invented writing. Now, Enoch lived before the flood. And science just recently, in my lifetime, discovered direct evidence that there was a flood, which immediately the Western white supremacist scientists, according to the teachings of Charles Lyell, who taught Charles Darwin about deep time, oh no, yeah, there's a flood. They grudgingly, between 1980 and 2010, geologists very grudgingly accepted the fact, yes, there was a flood, but they got theirs. They got their teaching from Satan, and they say, yeah, it was 65 million years ago. No, it wasn't. It was less than 10,000 years ago. That's been proved. How come you don't know that? I just told you. You're part of a white supremacist beast, and it tells you what to think. And you're not allowed to think anything except what Satan tells you. The Islam people are not under that jurisdiction. The Islam people are free in the most beautiful culture that this earth has ever produced. Although there have been flowerings, such as the Chinese culture produced the Yi Jing, which is Holy Scripture, according to the only authority who will ever tell you that fact, moi. So I am a guide. So now we're going to get into it.
All right.
We're happening.
Strict physics, strict mathematical physics, hard science. You have to prove everything you say. In religion, you don't. Philosophy also falls into this category, whereby philosophy and religion have some similar characteristics. The predominant one, the one that really defines the difference between religion and science, defined the way we would prefer to define those two provinces of human endeavor. The rational, logical side, which is what it boils down to, relies on logic, obviously, proof. You have to prove what you say, which is quite an interesting... I mean, you would have to have some final arbiter on, oh yeah, that proof is true. That doesn't always happen. You prove something, you believe it's watertight, as we would say, and then someone just says, someone responsible for whether this gets passed along or not, or published, or whatever is the case, disseminated, breathed a word of again if it's too ridiculous. You have to be able to prove everything you say. Well, you provide your proof, and then it goes right through. Of course, no, it's going to be stopped, because someone who knows more than you, or has really more authority, is going to say your proof is bullshit, and that's the end of the matter, because that person or panel or whatever is the entity involved, it actually can be quite a bit more abstract than that. It could be a spirit, which I don't know if you believe in spirits, but that's the whole point. That's the difference. Can you prove the existence of spirits? Can you prove the existence of angels? Are there orders of angels? Well, I think a lot of Western men, trying to be rationally logical about everything, presumably, would rather balk at that, and they would use a phrase which I've heard, and I think you may have heard it too. That's angels on a pinhead. Orders of angels, honey. Let's have a serious talk so we can shut you up. There aren't any fucking angels, okay? So don't be saying that in the schools where children can hear you. And as for that book of yours, which all it is angels, we don't want your angels or your pinheads. Zippy was a pinhead. I don't know if you're aware of that rather avant-garde cartoon was Zippy. And Zippy was a pinhead. So that's a derogatory term. So angels on a pinhead pretty much sums it up. We don't need your demonology, your goddamn spirits and angels. I just really lay it on the line. You know, you keep that in your churches behind your stained glass windows. You do whatever you want in your little bowling club or whatever you have. It's making you tax-free dollars. You keep it out of our public education system. Well, there's your authority for what gets taught in the schools, which, as you could imagine, could have aroused some bloodshed. You know, Americans being what they are, which is human. You're going to tell our children that we can't teach the Bible. Yeah, you got it. Keep your Bible out of the public education system. Okay, we lost that one. I was just speaking for the American, I guess, Christians, which hang on before you take the side of the Christians here. It sounds like they really got shafted. Now, there's two distinct opinions on that. No, they didn't get shafted. Is Darwin won, which he should, because they need to compete in the open market of the world. And if they're talking about angels instead of calculus, that's survival of the fittest. That's natural selection at work. That's exactly what natural selection is your kid is going to be one of the unlanded gentry, which at one time in our history, not too long ago, 1930s, were called hobos, which I've attempted to apply to our modern legion of disenfranchised, unlanded gentry. I think it's a lot of syllables. I don't know if it's going to take the place of homeless people, which is brutal. I mean, you're talking about N-word now. I'm like, that's not on your list of things you're not allowed to say? I won't even say it. Homeless person? I feel like I want to wash my mouth out with soap. I don't know, have you ever tried that? We as kids, we checked this out with each other. Have you ever tasted soap and were like nodding? Would you want your mouth washed out with soap? Oh yeah, my mother said that to us. We knew what she meant. That was the whole point. My mother not only used that, and she used them all. Well, all the mothers did, because you had to. You're raising American boys. My mother had a hairbrush, and somehow it was always about her person or somewhere nearby. Because if you got out of line, you're talking back, you're just being a brat, which can happen at the early ages of any boy or girl's life. You just lose control, and now you need to be shown that there is an authority beyond which none of us can go, all right? Is your mother is just as helpless before this as the angels or you. But you're getting the hairbrush, and I've heard that it can be applied. Well, she applied it once. The first or second, I don't know, when I saw that hairbrush. And finally, she had to brandish it. She didn't just show it to me and shake it. She hit me with it on my arm. And I never forgot that. And I checked with my sisters. Oh, yeah. She never did it again, ever. All she had to do is show that hairbrush. That's authority. And that's how our schools are run. Now, I'm not saying one side is better than the other. It's like, are you allowed to teach Darwin? I say, sure. That was the whole issue. Because it's a theory, well, the kids got to know sometime. Let them know about Darwin. Fuck, let them write books on it if they want. Well, they did. I mean, you just went berserko with Darwin. Darwin is one of the most beloved of scholars. Well, they're all white. I'm just saying they are. And I was exposed to this, and I had to study it. That we're descended from apes. I studied it for decades, not just years, and not just a little. I studied the devil out of it until I knew everything these fucking evolutionists knew, and I couldn't believe what I was reading, actually. Because what I'm looking for is, what's the mechanism? Okay, so species change. I get it. I understand. We're all cellular organisms, even humans. We all have the same DNA, essentially. Well, it looks like we came from a common source. Were you going to throw that out of the school? Well, apparently that was a situation. Get that fucking English swine out of our good American... it's right next to the hog farms. We're talking about America. Wheat, corn, mining. Big miners are the Americans. Oh, if they find gold, forget it. Although, when gold was found in the Sierra Nevada, they came as far as from Australia, from China, from everywhere. Every country in the world. Gold, is out in this wilderness on the west coast of North America. They fucking got into any kind of boat, and they could, to get there in 1849. Gold, well, that's in the Bible a lot. Gold. Now, if you're into UFOs or just technology, which I'm sure you've been exposed to it, you know that gold is like, if you want to impress the aliens or there's a UFO, show them your gold, because they would love to have your gold. Sometimes. Apparently, they can run short of it. Well, Earth is a major resource for gold if you're flying those buzzard things around. And there's all kinds of craft that have been seen, okay? Not just by people, but by organizations like, you may have heard, UFOs? Oh, yeah. Yeah. What are they? Zero knowledge. Well, it's not zero. It depends on your source of information. Well, this is exactly where science draws the line. Don't you be talking about aliens, UFOs? Angels are aliens, okay? And how did they get here? They just flew with their wings? Well, I don't want to be blasphemous. Because Islam believes in angels, I believe in angels, because you don't have much choice if God says there's angels. And you may not like them. And some of them are very unlikable, like Iblis. Oh, yeah. It sends a chill up my spine. It's like I'm becoming like a little child again. Well, at least that makes me eligible for heaven. But I'll tell you what, I don't like Iblis. His devil's ass can go to hell, is all I can say about that. And the Islam people like are, I'm an American, so that's how I talk. But I would be understood, and they would be probably backing away from me a little, because I was like that once, so no, he's going through it, Nobody likes Iblis. But they say he's a spirit. And I'm like pointing at my Bible. This never happened, but it could have. If I knew anything about Islam, the only information I have about Islam, Muhammad, the Quran, the Hadith, the Sunnah, the Sunni, the Shia, the 2 billion people spanning from the Atlantic to the Pacific. What do I know about them? Until 2 years ago, nothing. Except they got as far as Vienna when they were conquering Europe. They were coming up through Spain. They had Spain and Portugal. They were coming up. They came up through Greece, just took Greece and kept going towards Vienna. And Martin Luther was there. So I am a scholar. I know this stuff. I read books and books, fat big books by Martinus Luther. not just about him. Oh, read Daubigny. I had Daubigny read to me. Me and another guy. We took turns reading from Daubigny to each other till the other two would fall asleep. Anyway, I know my Martinus Luther and the Mohammedans, yeah, the Mohammedans with their Islam culture and their Mohammedan holy scripture are coming to pounce on Vienna. And if they take Vienna, that's in Central Europe. They're doing well. Kind of like the opposite of what Germany would do, going south to take Europe. They're coming up from Constantinople, just crossing the Dardanelles. This is in the Bible. It's so important. It's like it just happened numerous times as let's go into Europe. And the other way, too. Europe is like, let's go into Asia. And then we'd invade each other. And as a 10-year-old, that age bracket, this is the best stuff I could imagine. I loved school. I read everything I could about war. I read this big fat book, and I read it because it was fat. It's called War Through the Ages. Fucking page turner, man. You just want to know more. How many died in that battle, and they got what? They got Antwerp. It's like you're looking at maps. You're seeing the world for the first time with these arrows showing tanks, planes, lines of communication. There's oceans. You got to know maritime stuff. What happens up in the air when you're shooting 50 caliber machine guns at other hunks of pig iron flying above the beautiful Pacific Ocean over Hawaii. It's like, wow, that's a lot of information for a little boy. So I'm becoming like a little child, again, in memory right now, because maybe I'm becoming like a little child. I actually believe in angels. I think that qualifies in many people's, unseen manual for how to judge other people. He believes in angels. That's all they hear. It's not like God actually said so it's really a good idea to at least, I'm not saying I've seen them. I'm not saying I can prove they exist. I'm just saying, do I believe in them? Yes. Yes, I do. Because there are angels. You know how I know that? God said so. That's a pretty high authority. So how do you know about this God? Would be the first question. Let's find out. Where do we get the idea of God? Now, I have covered Hinduism, which is amazing. They're monotheistic. The Hindus are monotheistic. So are the Buddhists. And don't tell me, I know all about Campbell. I know all about Jung. I've read more than you can ever imagine reading about all of this. I know it all. That's the reason I make these videos. Because don't you want to hear from someone who knows it all? Well, I'm more than happy to talk, obviously. I like to listen to my own videos because I learn something. That's some pretty powerful teaching. What did I just say? I just let it flow. So I listened to it and, God damn, this really is good. This really is just, it's like level after level. It just keeps going like a stairway to heaven. How'd you like Mr. Lou? The reason I played that is because it comes out of Greece. But actually, I think you heard that's Levantine, okay? That's Semitic. Yeah. Mr. Lou is about a Huri, I think is, which did come across to New York, Hua. But that's America. I mean, yeah, it's just slime it. Hua. That's not the same thing as Huri, okay? I'm not sure those two words are related, but they sound alike. That's called a homonym. You're allowed to say that now. Oh, I'm from the Cenozoic era, when dinosaurs reigned. So the Yeshuan Yehudi, that's where we left off. That simply means, that's actually redundant. The Yehudi are what are today called the Jews. But really, that's really kind of morphed over the centuries as to what that means. I identify three groups: the Ashkenazi, the Sephardim, and then the Zionists. Which, I mean, you got to have the Zionists, man. I mean, the same thing is true in America. Oh, there's a hardcore part of American, I guess you would say, society that, yeah, supremacist, yeah. No, not Nazi. No, we're not Nazis. We're white supremacists. We believe in, well, I guess Hitler called it the Aryan race, but that's shit. We're here now. Well, guess who's on top? Oh, natural selection? Look at her skin. It's like, I have. That's not white. Okay, so you're an idiot. And this is where I begin in school. It's just, no, I don't accept white. Because if you saw a white person, you would have a heart attack, okay? And if you saw a black person, you'd probably lose your soul. You just go vacant. And you just stand there like a pillar of salt or a petrified frickin' conifer, all right? You've been stood up and now you're not going anywhere. You just saw a black man. Unthinkable. Well, if you saw them both at once, you might go cross-eyed. Anything could happen. Wall-eyed, you don't know what's going on. Your eyes just start doing whatever they want without talking to the other. You go cockeyed. Which means over like a male hen. A rooster is what we would call it, but in France, it's cockatiel, which is usually abbreviated to one syllable. Cock. Well, you know what that does to an American is we can't help it. It's reflex. Oh, natural selection is true. It's just not, well, I can't say it's not genetic. Because you do have mommy and daddy, and if you check back, you have to actually go back 3 and 4 generations, and then you hop, like going back through an I Ching or a Quran, you know. Oh, he said this because he said that he was there when he heard him say that, so that's in there, sure. Well, when you're growing up, you're exposed to a lot of stuff. It's just a question of whose BS, whose horseshit, whose ideas, whose theories, whose knowledge. Oh, the sun obviously flies through the sky with Newtonian velocity, and therefore it must be a god. And so you teach the children, and God help you if you're against that obvious truth. Well, that was overthrown in the American schools. I should have to put it, that is the common perception. Just get rid of these angels on a pinheads who talk about angels and start teaching our kids some real, down-to-earth stuff. Because they got to go out in the world and make a living. That's the whole premise of freedom. You better have money. As long as you have freedom, you only need one other thing. Money. Oh, with money, freedom is the shit. Nobody questions that. But getting that money turns out to have all kinds of long-term and short-term effects on you. Like you always need it. And you never quite have enough. And that's most of your life. Maybe you grew up with parents that didn't have enough. Like, this is all we have for lunch today is tomato soup and saltine crackers. My mother told me this story. It was wartime. She grew up during World War II. Can you believe that? That's how old I am. So the Yeshua and Yehudi are basically the Jews. Except, you see, you have to define that word very, very carefully. What do you mean by a Jew? What do you mean by that? I thought that I was a Jew. Oh, it's an easy mistake to make if you read Paul, because he talks about spiritual Jews. And he just states point blank, they're the only real ones, are the spiritual Jews. The rest are exactly why God hates the Jews. Which, he said so, although not in those terms, because then you could accuse God of being anti-Semitic. Well, that's called the Mosaic curse, but I wouldn't accuse God of anything. You know what I mean? You don't want to be accusing God. That's really not the function of a cellular organism, is to accuse God of anything. Even implicitly, it's like you just don't do that. I really think that's kind of getting close to blasphemy, which is one of the commandments. Thou shalt not take the name. The name? You don't need to know that name. You need to know he has a name. That's all you need to know. Yeah, don't take that name in vain. Whatever it is. It could be a billion names. Why are you questioning this? Don't take his name in vain, okay? No one's threatening you. Just don't do that. Oh, Jesus. Well, of course, what's going to happen then? It's like any teacher learns this and any parent learns this. Whatever you tell your progeny or the goslings following you blindly because you're the first thing that moved, they're going to believe whatever comes out of your holy mouth because you probably don't have much choice. But finally, you have to give in. All right. So this is the way it is. So I'm not going to take that holy name in vain, whatever it is. It really changes around the age of 13. You didn't say the F word. You heard it, but you never said it. We never said it. We didn't even say it objectively. Did you hear the adults say, F-U-C-K? Because I still can't do it. Because I was brainwashed. I didn't say the F word. I wasn't old enough. But at the age of 13, something magical happened. Lots of things happened in that year. Which I'm not sure, it might have been 14. Because I wasn't keeping a diary at that time, although it began pretty quick after that. By the age of 15, I was reading Ralph Waldo Emerson. But I was also reading about World War II and war through the ages and just war everywhere. I just ate up war like it was mother's milk. As I read everything about the war in the Pacific, we're talking about our guys, who are the heroes. I'm an American. Well, fuck yeah. Well, what do we do? Well, I was a little young, but we were kicking ass. I mean, you find out a lot of things later. 13 is not the dividing line for everything important in a young man's life. It's more like about 18, you're getting two sides now, and now you have some choices that you can't negotiate because you're 18. You're looking in other directions, is what I'm saying. Really quite physically other directions, like down and towards some buttocks, which is just starting to look like really geometrically beautiful. Like these curves, these parabolas, these hyperbolas just disappear into this bifurcating cleft going in. And you just know it's time, man. And as for war, that can wait. Mathematics, no, not right now. Let me just do some other studies first, right? Well, that's what I'm saying. But at the same time, you're finding out your government is evil. It's like, what? It's like, wash your mouth out with soap. What kind of filthy mouth? I told you I'm desperate for attention. I'm unashamed. I'm just unabashed. I'm free, okay? Did you laugh? Okay. That's all a comedian wants is just attention, which he cannot distinguish from love. Because you become like a little child. And that's what it's like to be a little child. I just defined it. You can't tell the difference between just attention. Positive goes all the way to love. Like, yeah, go on, do whatever you're doing, keep performing. We fucking love you. A man of any age responds to that, I'm just saying, from personal experience. You becoming like a little child again. I'm getting attention. I don't need Walt Disney. I don't need fantasy. This is it. Give me more. Give me more attention. That makes me happy. But then, you know what happens after that. It's like, it's someone else's turn, okay? Yeah, I know. But then the next day, you wake up, it's a new day, you praise God, you get up somehow. Arthritis or not, crippling diseases, asthma, whatever's happening, there's nothing really to look forward to. There's nothing in the cupboard. Your stomach's growling already. Thank God you have enough water. You're not fasting like an Islam man in the desert with no water. What the hell? They do this. That's what they mean by fast. No water. I'm like, what? So I respect this stuff. But did I know it when I was 18? No. Just the dominant religion and culture that's ever been. Then they're nice. They're just wonderful. Nothing. Well, that's freedom, huh? Yeah, you know what freedom is? It's choices. So what do you get in your American educational system? You know, what's the opposite of choice? What's the opposite of freedom? What's the opposite of choice? You don't have choices. You're fed what you get, you eat it. You finish your fucking plate. I don't care what's on it. You finish that goddamn plate. Because we told you. No blasphemy. But now the word blasphemy is replaced with one of their words, which is a whole page of information on what you're not supposed to do. Well, then they make it easy. Here's what you are supposed to do. Whatever we fucking tell you to do next is what you're supposed to do. Here's a gun. There's the country. Now you're in it. I had to actually look forward to that, because I was told by the time I was in high school, and this is not an uncommon story, I was told, you know, you're next. It's like suddenly all these war novels and just men killing each other wholesale for the sake of whatever, something great because we're winning. You know, that's pretty good if you're winning. We always were winning. Americans? Plus it seemed like, you know, we're not bad. I didn't think so. I thought, well, I'm one of us, so I guess we can't be all bad. So the megalomania just began right away. I was becoming a white supremacist. Well, I didn't know that. I liked the yellow people. And I had seen the black people, and I'm like a Plains American Indian. The black-white people. They're black-white people. I thought it was amazing. Then I found out how they got here. It was not exactly a good story to learn as a child. That's how all the... Oh, yeah. All of them. All the ones you see in the inner city manning the gas pumps. Wherever you see them in their segregated schools. Miami. Oh, even here. San Mateo. Right south of San Francisco. Segregated schools, yeah. Segregated. And every now and then, no matter how young you are, eventually you see them inside their cyclone fence. Every last one of them black as the ace of spades. And you're supposed to figure that out. Like, that's normal. Why aren't we playing with them? Why aren't they playing with us? You know what I thought? I still remember this vaguely. Because, you know, how do you rationalize that? Well, they must prefer that. It's like they... And I kind of saw, like, yeah, okay, I can understand that. If that's the way it is, I guess I can live with that. And so do we. And I'm starting to identify, like, okay, well, we prefer to... Well, there must be some good reason for that. And I figured, well, I'm not old enough to know what that is. Well, then I found out I watched Roots or some bullshit. Oh, my God. Well, then you're just like, what the hell is going on here? So that's why... Well, now we're mingling, which is like, yeah, it's about time. It's about time, yeah. Well, what about the people who are already here? I've rarely met any of them. I finally had to go to Idaho. And it was just on a boon, just one of those things. I didn't go to Idaho to meet the Nimiipuu. But I kind of knew I was because I was going to their reservation. Because it's like a mixed... Yeah, it's mixed. Although they do technically have a large tract of land, well, they own homes on that land, and I guess the subject is American civil law. They're there, all right, and they're Nimiipuu. They're not even mixed. The ones that I sat with for 3 days of sweltering heat, we sat under this bridge on their land. So I'm smoking with them. They really like that. That was really scarce among them at that hour, I guess, which is about this time of year. I went up and I was just writing at a table, and this Nimiipuu man is, you know, I saw in this shrub between me and the river, I'm at this outdoor picnic table, and I see this guy that looks like, I'm thinking, it looks like a Mexican Indian. It looks like Don Juan. He looks like a medicine man. I better behave myself, because I didn't know. He certainly looked like an Indian. Well, he was. And he watched me for a while, and he knew, of course, that he knew everything that went on in my mind, probably. Because I'm looking at him, I looked at him again, you know, and then I went back to my writing, because I thought it was the polite thing to do to see what he wanted to do. Well, he took his time, but he finally approached the picnic table and sat down across from me. And I looked at him and I thought, that's a Native American. So that was really a good experience. Well, it certainly was. For the next 3 days, I turned them onto my pot, which they heartily appreciated. They really, I mean, it's just like I would do the same thing if I had no pot, but you did, and you're like, why don't you hang with me for a while? I'd be like, well, thanks. Oh, I don't mind if I don't, Just, well, what could I give you? Malt. They gave me malt. Is a malt beverage, freezing ice cold, from, I don't know, whatever their version of this 7-Eleven is up in the sticks. Because we were out there. It's just trees. It's nothing but a forest. And blistering heat. Oh, they get it too. You go farther north, it's only like 101. But it's in the hundreds. And so for the next 3 days, we sat under this bridge, which cast this enormous shadow. It's really a work of modern technology, this bridge. And so we sat underneath it on these giant boulders, because it's a real river, so you have to have boulders, or down comes your bridge eventually. So we're sitting on these boulders. And it was great. It was like about 80. It's under the bridge. It's huge. It's like a cathedral. And there's all of these mud swallows just swooping. You can see some of their nests. Just the cutest damn thing you've ever seen, especially if you're higher than a kite on marijuana, which they were just like me. I'm Santa Cruz. Oh, they're like blood brothers, my friend. We are brothers forever, because they took to that marijuana like a child's little puckery mouth takes to its mother's teat when it's time. It's automatic. Just suck the life out of that baby. You got more? Oh, I just set it out. I had some in reserve, too, because I don't like to run out of that stuff. Well, neither do they. So we got along well. And you know what? They turned me on to something I had never tried, because I associated it with tenements. And it's malt liquor. I discovered something underneath that bridge. Is that malt liquor will get you canned. It will blow your mind and undo your bind in ways you can't predict. They had me take them, 3 of them, in my car when I could only see through one eye, and we drove all through their reservation while 2 of them just were dead asleep in the back the whole time. Every now and then you'd get something, hey, that's the fish, and then he'd go back to snoring. But the guy in the front was just nodding, that's malt liquor. I was nodding. And there's no one else on this road, and so the Nimbapoo and I really got to be close. And the guy who was sitting next to me, who was that Indian guy I first saw, I believe he's either their chief. They have. That's not saying enough, because the chief is not necessarily, because you can imagine you need a lot of people to make a nation. Well, the chief, I mean, so what? You have to have a chief, yeah, but what about your medicine man? What about your lawyer? We got a visit from the lawyer one day. And we all quieted down. Of course, I'm the last to notice, just jabbery, because they encouraged me to talk because I keep smoking, yeah. And drinking this malt liquor. And just having the time of my life. Well, my friend, the chief, he didn't have to talk to me. We just read each other's minds, except I have a lag because I'm not used to it. And so he just tugged on my shirt, and I went, oh, you know what? I'll bet I know what he's going to say. And I looked at him, and he just moved his head, and he drew his finger just near his mouth and pulled on it. And I said, he's telling me to shut up. And so I did. And then the medicine man, who was wearing a tie, he was a lawyer, and he signed his book and gave it to me a few days later, because he remembered me, because they told me about him. This is the guy that kept us high while you were gone helping our tribe, which he was. A heroic figure. So not only did I meet the chief, and I met their queen, and I also met some others, because I was treated right well. They liked me, Daddy-O, and it wasn't just mercenary, we want your grass. They thought I was entertaining, because I was. Because I liked them. When I like people, I open up. Daddy-o. And then he had to tell me to zip my lip. And this guy told us the story of the Nimapu people in recent history. And we all just sat there. There's like 20 or 30 of us on these rocks. Because there were more and more each day, as you might imagine. And many of them had their own pot, which was really good. And many of them were white. And they were highly respected, so that was great. Because they wanted to talk to me, man, about stuff that... one guy was a rock hound. I was fucking listening to him for hours talk about his rock hunts in this crazy land of minerals. He knew it all. So it was really a great 3 days. But there was a lot of inebriation. I can just definitely verify, testify. I was probably the worst at a certain scale, which is foreign. I'm just visiting. But I've drank their malt liquor. Good medicine water, my friend. Just exactly the perfect for that climate, that climb, that biome, which was hotter than hell, which is quite common on the West Coast. It's like this time of year, it's hotter than hell. Count on it. You're going to the Grand Canyon? Wait until October. It's a lot cooler. You want to go now, you'll be in danger of dying. It's hot. Like you can't believe hot. Okay? It's frying you like you're in a giant oven. It's the Grand Canyon. Do you understand? You're going to go down that trail. No, you're not. Not in July. They do. They'll go down it. And then you know what happens? Oh, it's time to go back. Yeah, well, it's still hot. And now you're going back on that. It's 2,000. I don't even know. It's thousands of feet. That's too much. You don't want 3 numbers. 3 digits. 4. 4 digits in the amount of elevation gain you're going to make. It's going to take you a long time, count on that. But when it's that hot, you could just drop dead. Just drop dead. I'm Ranger Rick, and I'm not going to tell you that this is millions of years old. It's about 8,000 years old at the most. It's just this gigantic flood. And science has proved it, and I don't care what that does to your mind or your future. But this earth was absolutely ecocidally inundated with not just a flood. That doesn't say it. It was global scale, cataclysmic, lithospheric, ginormous, crazy rearrangement of everything, leaving sedimentary layers miles deep all over the continents and nothing at the bottom of the sea. So that's basically what happened. Well, Daddy, or guru, or medicine man, or PhD, what caused that? A comet strike, my son. A comet strike. Could have been 2. It was so devastating that the Earth shouldn't be here. But instead it was just drowned like a giant rat in space. Just covered with water that came out of the depths of the Earth, just erupted, and you can imagine that caused rain. Because we had been hit by a 1 million Sarbomba strength super thermonuclear subcrustal seismic wave producing, highly explosive, vaporizing, 1 million times worse than the worst explosion you can imagine with your mind. And it just rent the earth asunder. A giant crack just spread all over the earth, and all this water came out. And there's even a theory that there was a hyperbaric sphere which suddenly was disturbed. Is this giant ocean of vapor that suddenly went, oh, it's time to rain everywhere all at once, while this water is just gushing out of the bowels of the earth in this seam rip. It's just shooting hypersonic water sheets. The mid-Atlantic, it is 40,000 miles long, and it just shot all this water, which of course just dragged up all the filth, the dirt, which is basically just now ground up igneous rock, just, well, that became limestone, sandstone, mudstone, siltstone. There are huge disconformities where the water apparently subsided and then came right back and did it again as these gigantic tsunamis just encircled everything. After this explosion, which rocked the earth with at least 3 different kinds of major seismic waves, the like of which we literally cannot comprehend the magnitude. 1 million Sarbombas is 100 million megatons. That's how it's computed. That order of scale. 100 million megatons. The Sarbomba itself was detonated after being dumbed down at the last second in 1961 October. Actually, the anniversary is coming up. See, 1961, that's 39 plus 26. The 55th anniversary to the month, we can get the day of the explosion of the largest man-made explosion of all time. It wasn't even a thermonuclear bomb. That's what triggers the 3rd stage. And it could have actually destroyed part of Europe, even from the Arctic Circle. But again, they replaced the uranium core with a lead core so that it wouldn't possibly run off the chart and blow up the whole Earth. They actually weren't sure, because it was just going to go through all the elements and fission them all. What's called a step sequence. So that was exploded with a lead core instead of a uranium core, because with a uranium core, there would have been dirty fallout. And the Russians don't believe in that. I mean, they were rather ruthless because they were up against the Zionist Americans, and they knew it. So they really needed to do this just to show, you're not just going to bomb us out of existence, because we'll just land one of these things on you. And the Nazi scientists on both sides of the Atlantic literally shit in their pants. That's on record. They didn't have cell phones. You know, we're talking about decades ago. But 1961 is only, if I counted right, is that 55 years? 65, I'm sorry. Because it's 39 years to the millennium. So 39 plus 26 is 65. So in October is the 65th anniversary of the explosion of the 62 megaton, not kiloton. Hiroshima was kiloton. This is 1,000 times bigger. But it was also a RS-232 or whatever they labeled it. Got the nickname the Tsar Bomba for fairly obvious metaphorical reasons. And it was exploded. And you can read about it because a lot of this information is declassified, although one of our CIA planes almost ate it in the sky, as did the pilots of the once-only aircraft, there'll never be one like it, that hoisted this gargantuan bomb. It was a modified Tupolev, or whatever they called those planes. Oh, it was modified all right. Huh. And they detached it, and its parachute deployed correctly, and it ignited about a kilometer or something like that above the surface, because that's the maximum devastation. You don't want it to land on the ground. You want it to be up higher, like way higher. And if you've seen Terminator 2, that's an excellent CGI. Actually, I think there's another word for it now. Very convincing. You just saw a thermonuclear explosion for real. She has all the flesh just blown off of her bones. So she ends up clinging to a cyclone fence, watching this city being devastated with thermonuclear explosion right above it. And the blast comes toward her. Of course, she's hit with gamma rays and everything under the sun, including this ferocious wind. So it's a good thing she held on with what ended up just being her tarsal bones and metatarsal bones, just clinging to this cyclone fence, while all of her flesh, including her eyeballs, which went last, just blew right out of her mind. And so you're there. And that was quite frightening. Because it's so, you can't tell the difference between that and reality. You just got blown up with a goddamn thermonuclear device. at close range that blew all the flesh off of your bones. Well, it's a little unreal. It would have shattered the bones. There would have been nothing except maybe for a second one metatarsal bone just clinging, and then fling, it's gone too. That's more realistic. Actually, it would have been such a fireball that the camera would have been melted and there would be no record of this no matter what you did. So that's science fiction for you. I mean, I grew up on this too, along with a along with a world war and war through the ages, and meeting the Nimapoo eventually, which really, I think it changed my life. I think all Americans should travel. It's really the one thing you can do that you're not going to go wrong. You're going to grow all right because you're going to actually see things. You're going to learn there's a bigger world. Well, I think every American should be exposed to that at least once. You could extend that to the whole human race. Sure. Travel. Yeah. Oh, it's fun. People do it all the time. It's called the tourist industry. Unbelievable. It generates money for countries, okay? They put it right on their GNP. We're a tourist nation. Oh, there's a list. There's a major source of money. I could go on, but we're not really talking about the Yeshua and Yehudi. And that's an hour. All right, well, I had to unburden, let you a little know about your old professor, because we're just going to finish this up so you'll know something about religion, okay? Come on. It's kind of like traveling. I'm going to take you on a little tour of all the Holy Scriptures so that you actually know what it says, what it means, why people believe it. Maybe you should too. I'm not doing that to you, because you know what's next is your wallet. Yeah, you can get all of our tapes or CDs. I go back to long playing like wax records with steel needles where we would listen to it, just mammy. Then we were exposed to talkies. This really is my parents' generation, but I was exposed to what they went through. Oh, during the war, this country came back to life. When they found out there was a Vietnamese war, they were just like totally in favor of well, we can do no wrong. We're fighting another war. It must be good. I was exposed to that. I tried to study Vietnam, which I didn't like. Because first of all, where again? We just barely got out of invading Japan. And then I found out, well, there was Korea. There's what? There was Korea. That's on the other side of the world. We didn't have to invade Japan. It was hell getting to Japan. Isn't time to go home. Oh no, we're there now. Oh, it turns out it's like this giant shark. So we just sank our teeth into South Korea because that helped somebody. And then Vietnam, I'm like, it's a swamp. They have no resources. What are you doing there? The French gave up. Why are you taking it from the French? Oh, it's just to stop the Chinese. What are you talking about? You're not... What? No, that's a bad idea. But it was in Time, it's in Newsweek, it's in all the... Everyone's talking about it. It is just horrendous. Nobody liked it. Everybody hated it. Anybody who is intelligent, they're just dragging them off. Especially, there was a racial thing too. You didn't see just nothing but white people at the front lines in Vietnam. And that was an issue that I was exposed to. Oh, there's tension. Is there? What a world, what a world, yeah. So what are we doing in Vietnam again? Never got an answer. The best answer I ever heard, because I was in high school at the time, we're protecting Australia. And I checked the map and I'm like, you're protecting Australia by fighting in Southeast Asia. Yeah, because of the domino effect. The domino effect. So the Chinese apparently were going to just sweep like a giant tsunami down through Vietnam, which was not their goal. It was Sydney. It was Adelaide. They wanted Perth. They wanted the whole desert. They wanted Tasmania. They were going to get New Zealand. That's the last straw. You're not getting the home country for the man who conquered Everest with Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpa. But one of our white supremacist heroes is from New Zealand, and no, we can't let Mao, or whatever his name is, just sweep like a tsunami, and so we're going to fight him in the swamps of Vietnam. And I said, that's bad logistics. It's a bad idea. It's a bad place. There's no victory. There's no exit. You're just going to be squashed, and you're going to have to fly out in helicopters amidst tears and a lot of dead. Plus your B-52 bombers will end up just decimating all of Southeast Asia willy-nilly, and that's probably a bad outcome. I saw all this, and I said so, and I was ignored. And so are many of us, who just completely ignored, except I wasn't being completely ignored because I came of age for the military. And that's the end of a young man's life as he knows it. A new life begins. A gun is shoved in your hand, or a sword, or a bow and arrow, or a club, or anything to fight your enemy. The Children's War, according to Kurt Vonnegut, who is actually considered to be an underground writer. Kurt Vonnegut, yes, one of the most famous names in science fiction. It's like George Carlin being a comedian. No, he's something more than that, okay? We're talking about the greats. We're talking about Chappelle, okay? Carlin. The greats. They're telling us something, okay? They're telling us something about who we are. We're sheltered. So travel. I'm going to take you on a travel, a series of guided tours through the greatest discovery sequence ever to befall the human race. And it came my way. And I could start there, but that's a little grandiose. I think that's a little overwhelming. So I thought I would start with religion and angels, which is what we were going to get to. And let me just shoot down there a little bit so you can see there's a Genesis record. We covered that there. The angels. The angels. Do you know anything about the angels? There are two kinds. Oh, and by the way, you see right below that is the flood. And then the everlasting covenant and Noah's barbecue when God wrote his poem. That's all coming up. But the angels. You see, the Islam people believe in angels. And I'm just telling you, I do too. So you need to know what I know, so you have choices. It's not to get your wallet. It's not to pull you into some raving lunatic religious sect or cult. It's not to change your mind at all, but you'll have potential to change your own mind. That's the idea behind science, you see. It's also the idea behind religion, is to give you choices. So you have them. You don't have to take that choice, but at least you have it. So you know why some men might believe just why they believe what they believe. When there's billions of them, I would say a rational man has to take that seriously. You have to know what they know, or you don't know what you're dealing with. You certainly don't know what you're talking about, as we say, in a rather low, meaningful way. You don't know what you're talking about, but you will talk about it, and so you're going to be an idiot. And that's not something a rational man wants to be. A rational man is always balanced. He knows both sides. That's our trademark. You're not going to throw us. You're not going to push us over. You're not going to influence us. We already know what's right. And we're not asking for your opinion. You are entitled to your opinion. That's part of the freedom of choice. But some men are authorities. You don't have to listen to them, certainly not if you're an American, and you shouldn't, because 99% of them are likely compromised authorities. You, and only you, can know the truth. No one around you is going to tell it to you. Can you be mistaken? You will be, and you'll grow, but you will never be as imbalanced as you were in the past. You will always become more and more of a diplomat until your very tenor forces you to be taken seriously, because by then enough people have listened to you, they've learned you're never wrong. Never wrong. Do you see a possible flaw in that? Yes, it's called Zeno's paradox. You're never entirely scot-free. If your name is Scott, that's particularly appropriate, and my name is Scott. Although in scot-free, it's just with one T. But it's a well-known expression in my culture. To get away scot-free means that you weren't caught. Get that out of your mind. You're already caught, honey. It's just a question of how you're going to end up. So a rational man wants to end up, first of all, afloat. Second of all, stable. Third of all, seaworthy. And the metaphor can be drawn into a parable. You need perfection. You have to know everything that you need. And it's your job to figure it out and get it right. Will you? How about angels? What do you know about angels? Examine yourself. In my circles, in the scholastic world, we talked about angels. This was in the past. I am a Christian scholar. The angels are treated rather cavalierly in Western Christendom. The Catholics are a little more serious about the angels. But then again, they're the Catholics. So what do you expect from them? What do you expect from the Protestants, who are still Trinitarian? They still say Jesus is God. All the Protestants say that, all the way down to the cults. They're all charismatic, too. They think there are 3 gods. Islam doesn't believe that. No, there are not 3 gods. Can you devise this Trinity, the Godhead, 3 in 1? Does that sound logical to you? It does not sound logical to a rational man, okay? 3 gods in 1. Who's pulling whose leg here? If you speak of God, you automatically are speaking of something that is extremely well known, very clearly defined entity. No scientific deviation on the core concept of superconsciousness. And that was indirectly discovered by Bernardo Kastrup, who does have a religious side. He's a very interesting man. He invented the term analytic idealism. I have synthesized his framework into something much higher that incorporates all of his work and loses nothing of it. But it's synthetic idealism, where you're no longer separated from your conscious state. Whatever's in your consciousness, that's reality. That's reality, is what your consciousness is. I said what's in it. That's actually the hottest bone of contention and always has been. When you say your mind or your consciousness, are you talking about what's in it, or are you talking about it? Whatever it might be. Well, it is the repository or space, you would say geometrically. It's the space of your perceptions, whether they're real in any sense or not in any sense, but it's what's in your conscious state. You're in the state of consciousness. That topic is at the top of the list right now. It's what humanity is seeking to understand. Is that distinction is what it comes down to. When you say your consciousness, do you mean your mind? I don't think that's what's meant specifically. When you say consciousness, that's quite difficult to define what that is. You would need some kind of framework, because you need a superspace. That's a basic geometrical principle. When you're drawing on a blackboard, that blackboard is embedded in a larger space. Correct? I think you can see that. That's obvious. This is the same thing. You're talking about consciousness. As you say that, you're drawing it on a blackboard. And that blackboard is in a superspace. Does that exist physically? Is that a physically provable space? That would be quite difficult to define, wouldn't it? There is quite an interesting paradox in this method of inquiry. Your consciousness, you're referring to it as if it is something. Can you define it? Because you have to now. That's the regressive, that you have to. You have to try. And if you can't, you have to axiomatize what you're saying and just say, because that's the way it has to be, that's how we're going to begin. That is called axiomatization of the system. And system is quite abstract here, because you're talking about consciousness now. That's a thought. What do you mean by that? Is it proper to say that we all know what that is? Yes and no, right? Yes and no. We can't possibly all know exactly together what that is. But each of us has a perception of what it must be, and then we tend to project that and imagine that someone else will probably think the same way. And that's part of the inductive process, because that's quite a difficult question. How would you define consciousness? Well, you can look up several attempts to define that term. It goes quite deep, quite quickly. And I'm attracted to that. Very much attracted to that. It is part of the deductive-inductive system we call rational logic, which does rely on a process, a system of evaluation. So when you say consciousness, what do you mean? Let me try that again on you, see if you like this game. Universe. Universe. How would you define that? Reality. Oh, reality. Well, that's kind of like each of these words has a certain flavor. And what's happening, I believe, to state it as rationally as possible, which means to divide something out of it and compare to quantities, so you have some kind of grip, as we say, on what in the world are you talking about? Well, you may not want to start with consciousness because there's an involution problem that doesn't exist to the same degree as when you go to define universe. Universe actually I think you can imagine an avenue of approach to defining the universe somehow. How about consciousness? You see, part of the problem in trying to come to terms with saying that is that you're kind of doing it. So it's already happening. And now you're kind of trying to define what is your whole mode of existence. And you're giving it a name. Consciousness. I believe it's a real term. It's a valuable term. There's another one that I am greatly attracted to, if you like this game, space. Well, you know what jumps to my time? All right, well, how about energy? Okay, how about matter? Okay, how about a sphere? Okay, that's geometry. You begin with a form. That's geometry. You begin with a form. You could begin with a straight line. That's been quite popular for a couple of millennia now, is to begin with a straight line on a plane. A straight line, as we conceive any kind of space, of any dimension, a line makes a space, but it's embedded in a higher space. Well, if you start using the linearity of your axiomatization of what is space, which is a line definitely exists in space, so that's your axiomatic beginning for your geometry, is the line. What if you don't do that? What if you begin with a sphere? As you can imagine, that's been tried. Has it? Can you prove that? Do you have an Encyclopedia Britannica entry to show me, or a Wikipedia entry to show me, that shows that men have attempted to parameterize space but without lines? Has that ever been tried? I dare you to check. It's part of my job to check that, because that's my area of expertise, is physical geometry. Well, where do you begin in physics with geometry? With Euclid. You begin with a straight line, which is based on a point. And that's why he began his first sentence in his most famous book, Elements. That is, it's most famous in the sense of being the most famous of books. It's right up there with Al-Ghazali and the Bible. Just to name two other contenders for the number one most important, most well-read book of all time. Al-Ghazali's Iya, the revival of religious science, is up there among the top three. The Holy Tanakh, the Holy Scripture, which has been extended into Yeshuan Yehudi, that would be following the last of the Israeli prophets, Yeshua, currently called Christendom as a culture or Christianity as a religion, but it would be the Yeshuan Yehudi, who, as I mentioned earlier, are spiritual, has nothing to do with DNA or genetics. Is to be a Jew is purely of the heart. Has nothing to do with physics whatsoever, certainly not with DNA. It doesn't have anything to do with race, however you define that, except the human race, which is the only race there is, because we're not a species. That's been proved. So who is Yeshua? He's the head of the race. For the future, that's called the Messiah, is the head of the race, who would necessarily represent God as the go-between in a new kingdom, because a kingdom has to have a king. And it's not going to be the one whose kingdom it is. It's going to be whoever that the Spirit designates for that position between heaven's throne and men. The authority, the king, and judge of the earth. the earth. That's called the everlasting covenant, and it involves the elect one, the one that the Westerners called Jesus. J is pronounced J, and then the S is pronounced as a Z, Z, and then the last is a sibilant S, S. And so the first vowel is a long E, E, and the last vowel is a short U, A. And if you put all those together, you get J, E, Z, S. That's not his name. And I don't recommend that you pronounce his name that way, ever. I do, because it's my job to communicate. And you're allowed to, too, because if I can do it, you can do it. I'm just telling you, you're better off saying Yeshua, which I do most of the time now. But if I were Islam, I would be saying Isa. And beautiful. I'm just going to start weeping. I just love having found my family, that I do have a culture. I do have a society that's meaningful to my father. And to have grown up in this nation, it's such a relief to have traveled far enough to have met Muhammad. Peace be upon you, my older brother. Thank you for your courage, having been gripped by Archangelos Gabriel. Blessed be the name of that angel's leader. Amin. So that ends our sequence for now, because we're coming up on 100 minutes. But I will breeze through this to give you a little rundown on the angels, so that you'll graduate from Princeton, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, and Oxford, and 3 top-notch universities in Europe with multiple PhDs. You'll know everything there is worth knowing about religion, including Buddhism and Hinduism, including the Native Americans and South Americans and Africans. Everybody has a religion, and it all has a creation myth. And you have to wonder at that. So whether you have read Joseph Campbell or Carl Gustav Jung, you may recognize that's an archetype, also called a paradigm, that's cross-cultural and total historical to the present day. Certainly Islam remains the testimony to true monotheism, which the core Hindus believed in one true God. If you go deep enough, you'll find some of them. If you go into Buddhism, at their core, and it's in writing, they believe in the one true God. They're monotheistic. There's nothing else to consider. That's the highest form of wisdom, is the recognition of the Creator as superconsciousness, superintelligence, superhuman, capable of appointing a king over humanity. And that could be called his son. He calls his angels his sons, and he calls his vice-regent, Yeshua, his son. And Muhammad loves the son. He said so. It's in the Hadith. It's also in the Quran. You can trust Yeshua as the actual last prophet. And Muhammad is his witness. And all of the Islam people are devout, true Christians. They believe in Yeshua as the Messiah. And there's not just one witness among them that say that to this very day and will die by it, believing it. That Yeshua is the Messiah to come. Yeshua, who preached the gospel of highest heaven to men. That's who Muhammad believes in. Absolutely. And he met him. He says that he met him. That is, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, and peace is upon him, he met Yeshua in heaven. And that's in the Quran. And what do you think Muhammad thought about having met Yeshua? He's my older brother. Listen to him. That's what John the Baptist said too. And that's what you and I should say. In the presence of that one, even in word, anywhere in consciousness, that you encounter the name of Yeshua, remember, Muhammad loves that man and will defend him as if he were family. Don't mess with a prophet's family. Yeshua is Islam. That's what it means to be the elect one. Is he also the Messiah to come? Yes, and there are 2 witnesses who say so. And they're named in the book of Revelation, the prophecy of Yeshua himself from heaven. He said, there are 2 witnesses, and they'll be killed in the streets of Jerusalem, which is Babylon. Oh yeah, the Jews were once in Iraq. The Israeli Jews were in Iraq, imprisoned there. That's where we get Babylon from. It's referring to modern Israel. And that's in Revelation. So the 2 witnesses who are killed by the Zionists in the streets of the Mideast are Sunni and Shia. Both of those 2 main branches, and they're the only branches of Islam, are Sunni, 90%, and the state religion of ancient Persia, now modern Iran, Shia, among whom are the Twelvers. Every last one of those sects of Shia, comprising Shia itself, believe in the Messiah. What about Sunni? 90% of the Islam world is Sunni, which means basically they follow the tradition without too much deviation. In other words, non-charismatic. They're mainline, as 90% would indicate. Well, then you always have the spiritualists, and that would be Shia. They tend to deviate a little bit from mainline conservative inheritance of authority. They have a difference of opinion on the nature of a guide, including the Messiah. But 90% comprise the other witness. So there are 2 witnesses to the Messiah that is not, expressly not, the Jewish Messiah. Instead, it's Yeshua himself, which is most interesting because Yeshua was the last Jew. And all Jews following Yeshua, you could say after his resurrection, more technically after his ascension, the only Jews left are the ones that know Yeshua as the coming Messiah. Those are Jews of any color. Those are Jews. But the ones that are in Israel are not Jews. There's something else, and that's in the book of Revelation. They're called the whore. And the whore rides a beast. It is fairly well identified at this late stage of psychohistory that we're pretty sure who the beast is, although it has a lot of heads. And then it has this one little horn, which is poking into the belly of Asia, which we call Asia. It's a little horn, and it's horny in the worst way. What's his name? What's that billionaire Jew pimp's name? Epstein. Whoredom. Fornication at the spiritual level. Men whose minds have been fucked. That's Trump. That's Netanyahu. That's all of your politicians are fucked in the head by fallen angelic spiritism. That's why there's a hell. It's for them. Got it now? It's not for you. I don't care if you ate a second chocolate bar or had a triple-decker ice cream cone when you know damn well your soul is in jeopardy of burning in hell forever for having violated a vow that you made in the church. And now there's no way out. Darling, hell itself is going to be thrown into a super hyper massive black hole at the end of time itself as we know it. That's what the angels are all about. They live in the universe that you and I cannot enter. They live in heaven. And some of them are defective. And those live on earth. It is possible, at the extreme hypothetic angels on a pinhead theoretic mode, they might have once lived on Mars, which is now known to have experienced a cataclysmic event in the not too distant past, possibly at the same time that the Earth was hit by at least one cataclysmic comet that induced an ecocidal flood that's now in Wikipedia, but it's dated to 65 million years ago. No, it wasn't 65 million years ago. The Grand Canyon proves that. And so does the rest of the face of the Earth, from the bottom of the ocean to the top of Everest, where there are fossils from the bottom of the sea. How did they get 5 miles into the air? Your scientists will lie to you about how those fossils got there and how the Grand Canyon was formed. They will believe, and you have to trust them that they believe this. They believe that that flood occurred in deep time, which means tens of millions of years. Actually 6.5 times 10 million. That's how long ago the Genesis flood occurred. That's been disproved. And with it, the whole Darwinian model. Because now you need angelic influence. Back again, the Elohim, the engineers, had to come back after the flood. They did. The Elohim engineers came back after the flood in order to respeciate the earth. Correct? Because only they could do it. That's been proved by DNA microbiologic research. That in order for that code to have been changed so fast to produce 1.5 million species of animals and plants in under 6,000 years, they had to work fast. They did. And there's evidence of it all over the world. The engineers were here to speciate the earth with 1.5 million plants and animals, all of which were transformed from whatever either was left in the oceans, we're not sure about that part, And whatever was aboard that craft that the angels helped Noah build, so that he would have a surviving genus pool of, for instance, superfinches, which would then be speciated, and perhaps hominids, who knows. But there was no need for the hominids. What about the apes? Oh, there were certainly some mammalian primates aboard the ark. Some mammalian primates, which is redundant, because primates are mammalian. Mammals were aboard the ark. So that's where we got the mammalian and therefore the primate species. Man did not speciate, but the animals and plants did. And that's why the Elohim were on the earth, all over the earth, doing their engineering feats with the genus pool. All the way to Hawaii, the Galapagos Islands, Easter Island, New Zealand, Tonga, Fiji, Micronesia. All the continents were repopulated in a very short period of time. We're not sure because those records are missing from the Bible. Somebody lost them. What happened after the flood? Nobody knows. But there is the book of Enoch, which says what will happen after the flood, that the Elohim will come back, and they will re-speciate all the animals and plants, and then, very shortly thereafter, after the everlasting covenant and the appearance of the rainbow, the signature of God in the cosmos, that he loves the earth forever, and nothing will ever destroy it again unless he decides to destroy it again, but not with water. Fire. And that's in Revelation. So that's how it ends. With a new heavens and a new earth, with Yeshua, the true king of the earth and judge of the earth, ready to hear the pleas. But there won't be any plea bargaining. And that is called the judgment of all mankind. Every soul of everything will all be in one place for one grand testimony that will not be argued, because this is what actually happened. And then it's off to your two destinations. Whatever and whoever you are, either the fire prepared for the devil and his angels, or paradise with Yeshua, the King and Judge of all men, forever and ever. That is the gospel. It goes to you. You're already part of it. You're already in it. It's only a question of what happens to you on what is called the last day. And if you don't think it's coming your way, then it's not coming to Netanyahu, it's not coming to Jack the Ripper, it's not coming to Hitler or Stalin. They all get away with what they did. All the murders are automatically, they're not forgiven, they're forgotten. Is that right? No. That has to be judged. We are moral creatures, and if you deny that, you're not human. You're probably possessed. Welcome to Western science. I am the antidote for that false form of science. I will tell you what's actually happening, just so you'll have a choice. What you do with that is up to you and your puppy. Voter. Yeah. It's a little late to be arguing with a guide, isn't it? Who else is going to tell you these things? Keep looking up. We'll be right back. It's almost 2 hours. Let's finish the thought. I still have 6.5 minutes left to make this an even 2 hours. Only once, I think, in 1,600 videos have I gone over 2 hours. It may have been 2 or 3 times, because it's my natural rhythm is about 2 to 3 hours. So this is a good video for me. Yeah, it's good for me, and therefore it's good. If it's good for you, that is what I want. Is it? How you doing? You found your answers yet? Where are you from? Baby cakes. Where's the human race from? Huh? Where's it from, scientist? Let's hear it. It's the only question that matters, isn't it? Because if you don't know where you're from, you don't know where you're going. Do you know what science says? I do. Who else is going to tell you this? Okay. So let's just scroll on a little bit, and we all can learn something. So all of this is in Enoch. We have the fallen angels, and they're innumerable. There are a finite number of fallen angels who currently control world events. There are the guardian angels. And then there are quite a lot of good angels. And most angels are good. By default, angels are good. The fallen angels are apparently the only exception. There was a defection. It had a lot to do with the creation of Adam. And the leader of the fallen angels never liked the whole Adam trip. And so he rebelled. And they've been consigned to earth. There was the flood. Enoch predicted that. So did Noah. Those two men talked to each other. That's in the book of Enoch. And then after the flood came the everlasting covenant with the earth, the entire earth, all the animals and plants is in the very first covenant between heaven and earth, which was sealed with a rainbow after Noah had a righteous barbecue, which had such a heavenly smoke that the Lord God Almighty, blessed be his name forever, wrote the only poem we have from the one called Allah. It's the most beautiful poem imaginable. It's only 4 lines long. And then, due to my studies into the divine poem, we are exposed to the cycles of nature as part of the everlasting covenant, the seasons, the day and night, etc., etc. All of that makes the divine poema, which refers to the ecology as a giant work of art. It's a poem. The divine poem, not just in words, which constitutes the legally binding covenant between heaven and earth to preserve it forever, as it is, perfect. That's going to take some house cleaning. That's coming up. The post-flood Toledot, these are the 11 or 12, we're not sure exactly, but about 12, I counted 12 separate records in Genesis, most of which occurred after the flood. The parts that make up the book of Genesis covers a long span of time. So the post-flood Toledoth are missing a huge section on what the Elohim did when they came here right after the flood. There is evidence of a megalithic culture all over the earth, including Easter Island. We're not sure about Antarctica yet, but if we continue, we might eventually find evidence of megalithic culture in Antarctica. That would not be out of the question. But those megalithic cultures appeared all over the earth, and there was some pyramid building in many locations, such as in what's now Mexico, I think, in Central America and South America. There were giant, inexplicable megalithic structures. They're in the Mediterranean. famously on a certain island called Malta, but also throughout the deserts around the world are these megalithic. There's a lot of them in China, some of which are so mind-blowing that you could easily become unglued as you realize that this is not a myth. There were megalithic cultures all over the earth that just suddenly all disappeared, and many of them were obviously under supernatural control. So we're not sure which ones those were, but there was this culture that appeared and disappeared, and there's myths accounting for this super race. Now we come to the post-flood Toledoth, and let me just read this to you because it's a little off the screen. The post-flood Toledoth are largely missing, but there's some evidence that we must have that's in the book of Enoch that talks about them coming back and speciating the animals and plants, which of course they did. But it didn't happen naturally at all. They're engineers, that's what they do. So they speciated all the animals and plants wherever they wanted them to be, making perfect ecological biomes all over the earth, all of them independent, by a process that can only be supernatural. So that's the absolute truth. So then we come to Yeshua. And this is the prophet Yeshua. So the Yeshuans were those who came to accredit Yeshua as a prophet, a significant prophet. Those are Yeshuans. Evangelion is the good news, the precious news that came from the elect one. What is the good news? It's very good news. You may want to look into it. What is that good news? Well, part of the good news is he's the promised one. That's from the book of Enoch. He's the head of all the elect. These are the true believers that God loves and is intending on saving no matter what, which he definitely will. One hopes that one is one of those. That is a Yeshuan. So a Yeshuan believes in Yeshua as the Messiah because that's the judge of all flesh and the king of the new earth. So that's who he is. He represents all of us. And he showed it. You certainly don't want to talk back to that one. He definitely is the king of the earth. So show some respect. Because he's your only hope. He's the final judge. Whatever he says about you is what's going to happen to you. I'm required to say this because there is such a thing as hell, and you certainly want to avoid that, but there's hardly any in between. There's no third group. So just may want to go along with a program of you're loved, and all you have to do is respond lovingly to the love that's been shown to you, and he'll know. He'll know. You're not going to fool him. He knows us all. He's got the records. He's got the book. He can review anything. He knows everything that he needs to know about judging each and every human who has ever lived. Okay. So, if we continue on a little bit, he is considered to be our high priest. He's also the judge, so that takes care of Sunnah, and that takes care of Messiahship, that takes care of eschatology, however you pronounce that, takes care of teleology, that sums everything up. You definitely want to kiss the Son, otherwise he's going to wipe you off of his path. So just be nice. Just as if you were courting a woman. Just be nice to her. Don't be mean. Show your respect. What is it costing you to show some respect? You don't believe it? Then get out of the way! Yeshuan Islam is redundant. What the Quran says, that's important to the Islam people. Well, that's what Gabriel, the Archangelos Gabriel said, and what did the angel say that Muhammad says told him what to say? Gabriel says that it's what Allah told Gabriel to tell Muhammad to tell his Quraysh tribe and anyone who cares to listen after that. A choice. So what did Muhammad, peace be upon him, say? Well, you have the traditions, the hadith. What Muhammad had to say was not his own words. It was the words of Archangelos Gabriel speaking for Allah. That's the Quran. That's not Muhammad. Well, what is Muhammad? The hadith, the traditions, the New Testament for them. It's their New Testament. Show some respect. That's the hadith. There are divisions of hadith based on reliability. That has been studied literally for more than a millennium now. The supreme hadith is wisdom, and that's in the Quran. The wisdom of the Sufic line is said to have been begun by the great poet Rumi, who was a Sufi. Then there's the wisdom of bin bina hokmah. Bin bina, and then something I discovered called tibuna, which I equate with relational logic, and finally wisdom. The proof of Islam is their wisest man, Al-Ghazali, and that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt what is the true religion on earth. It's Yeshuan Islam, which is redundant. They are all followers of the gospel. They all believe in Yeshua as the Messiah. All of them do. All of them believe the gospel. They say that Yeshua is the greatest of the prophets, except some prefer to leave that to Muhammad, which is their right. It's their prophet. But if you check what Muhammad said, he referred everybody to Yeshua. That's what Muhammad, peace be upon him as it is, that's what he said. Follow that prophet, because that's my older brother, whom I love. Allah Ehad, there's only one God. He does not have the Christian son. That son is the false Messiah. We got a siren. Synchronicity. Watch yourself. No idolatry. That's quite a broad-based term, right? Is money your idol? Or is Einstein your idol? Or are your scientists your idols? Is your university your idol? Is your government your idol? Do you have any idols? My question is, have you gotten rid of any of your idols because you'd better? Who is God? There's a question of can he be named. The Islam scholars have talked about this for a long time. It's admirable work. They're very respectful of God's name. That's the third commandment, so that's a very good idea to be very respectful of God's name. Very respectful of God's name. All 99 billion of them, if you believe that hadith, or 99, or it could be just one. I leave that up to you. You have to decide your level of respect for that name, because it doesn't make any difference how you say it. It's what you believe about that name. Is that a big name? It's bigger than any of your giants or your idols. And you better take that one to heart, because that's how you're going to be judged, is on that. So the prophecies of Islam, there are the two witnesses to Hamashiach, Yeshua the Messiah, who will be the Messiah. He is Yeshua. He is coming back. That's the Messiah, the King of the earth, as promised and fully depicted in the holy book of Revelation. The two witnesses are in the book of Revelation. They're called that, the two witnesses. That's Sunni and Shia. They're going to be killed by the Israelis. That's happening now. There is an alternate eschatology among some of the Shia that can be disregarded. They're mostly from India. Then there's the climax transmission, which came before Muhammad. That was Yeshua's prophecy from heaven. It was through the angelos of Yeshua, the angel, and that went to Johann by that angel. Same as Muhammad. So that's the ultimate blessing. Anybody who knows and understands that book will receive the blessing of the Most High, which is how I prefer to refer to him in mixed company. Now we come to now, and that's in the book of Revelation, is now. You have to get to the right part. The final war and the judgment of the beast and the whore, that's the United States and Israel, but there's more to it. And then there comes Armageddon, which is not actually a mountain, but a tell. It's an archaeological site in northern Israel. I believe it's actually in southern Lebanon. Well, there's some name dropping. Then we come to the Zeno hour, because no man knoweth that hour, which is approaching quicker and quicker and quicker. But we have it on the highest authority that not even the elect one, not even the Son, which is a title, not even the Son of God knows that hour, proving that he is not God. He certainly is not his Father. His Father knows things that he doesn't. You would expect so. God was never born from a woman. Miriam, who is highly respected in Islam, and show some respect for Miriam, or you may be. These are tumultuous times. You had better learn to show some respect for the religion of Islam. And you better watch your step. I'm just warning you. It's good news. Don't fuck with it. You don't accept it? Nobody cares if you accept it or not. But you will show respect, or you will be liable to the highest judge of all. And Muhammad said that, and so did the judge of the earth. So if you don't believe him, you're going to answer to him, not me, not the Pope, not the Buddha, or any of your imams, or any of your scholars, or any of your scientists. They will not be trying you on that day. But everybody is going to see exactly why you're either going in or you're not. So the Yehudi are the sons of the outcast nation. That is not genetic, and it doesn't depend anything on your mother and father. You should know that by now, you racist pig. That the sons, the actual Jews, the real ones, are the sons of the outcast nation. How do you get outcast from that nation? I leave that up to you to decide. Where do you stand with the Jews? Where are they? Who are they? Are they for real? Are there real ones? Then who are the real ones? I just told you. They're the ones who believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. And those are the only Jews that will ever be. Those are the Jews, are the ones that believe in the Son of God, just as Muhammad did. There are the unforgiven. Among the Ashkenazi and the Sephardim, there is forgiveness in the name of Yeshua. That's the good news to Israel. Whatever you did, even if you were a murderer like Saul of Tarsus, you can still be struck down. You can still be humbled. you can still be forgiven. Accept it. You will be. But you have to mean it. That's forgiveness. That's the good news. If you're not sure who you are, you can become who you're supposed to be. And it's that easy. Is it easy for you? You may not be young enough. You may not yet have learned that you are still that little child. And that little child who alone will enter heaven is deep inside you, looking for Father, who now calls to you. You're loved. Come home. I never lost you. All you have to do is accept. You'll find out then what happens, but not until. You can't fool him. You can't fool your Father. Don't try. There's amnesty. That's the gospel message. You will be forgiven. Don't make up your own terms. Don't have any intermediary. What about the Son? Go to the Son and ask him. Well, I'll tell you what he told all of us. Go to your Father. Go to your Father and ask him. That's what you're invited to do in Islam. That's what Yeshua said. That's what Muhammad said. Go to your Father. Nobody's going to stop you. Oh yeah, someone will try to stop you. The unforgivable ones, the falsifiers, who will do anything to block that good news. Those are the deniers of amnesty. This is Anagalactic. Thank you for tuning in for this 2-hour and 15-minute presentation, which I will not edit. And may Allah guide you on the path to heaven. You're already on it. You just may not be fully aware of it. But you must be. Love really likes a response. If you feel that you've been loved, and you have been, that's the good news, you have been loved. That's why we say it's never too late. If Paul could be forgiven, and he was a murderer, okay, he was a professional thug for the Zionists, that's who Paul of Tarsus was, before his name was changed to Paul. If he could be forgiven, so can you. A lot was done to prove that in your eyes, including the crucifixion. But he also ascended, and that's where he is now. And he's coming back. And don't believe what anyone says about that. Not the Mormons, not the Seventh-day Adventists, not the Catholics, and not the Shia. Not all of them. Although some of them are worth listening to because they have a real interesting angle on who is likely to be. I'll just say there are some people who may or may not appear who are quite mysterious. But I did tell you who the two witnesses are. Shia and Sunni. Thank you. We'll be right back. Keep looking up.